The breaking point. The massive crystal dome of Galactic Assembly Station Nexus Prime stretched endlessly above Ambassador Sarah Chen as she walked toward the speaking platform. Thousands of alien representatives filled the amphitheater in perfect rows, their varied forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have amazed any human seeing it for the first time. But Sarah had been here for 5 years now, and today she felt only a growing sense of unease. Behind her walked General Marcus Reed, his dress uniform crisp and his bearing proud despite the whispers that followed their delegation. Dr. Elena Vasquez carried a data pad filled with reports that should have made any reasonable being proud of humanity's contributions to galactic peace. Instead, those same reports had somehow become evidence against them. High Chancellor Vextar rose from his elevated seat, his crystalline form catching the light from Nexus Prime's artificial sun. The Zephyrian leader had ruled the Galactic Council for over 2 centuries, and his voice carried the weight of absolute authority when he spoke. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Chen of the Human Colonial Union. Vextar announced, his words translated instantly into thousands of languages. You may present your species' quarterly peacekeeping report. Sarah activated her holographic display, and images filled the air above the central platform. The first showed a massive cargo ship surrounded by smaller vessels. 3 months ago, human peacekeeping forces rescued the merchant vessel Prosperity's Dream from Void Raider pirates in the Kepler Expanse. Sarah began, her voice steady and professional. The ship carried medical supplies for the Andromedan plague outbreak. Our intervention saved 400 lives aboard the vessel and prevented the loss of supplies that would have saved thousands more on Andromeda 7. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, but Sarah couldn't tell if they were approving or disapproving. She continued to the next image. Human engineering teams worked for 6 weeks to repair the atmospheric processors on New Tharsis after the volcanic eruption destroyed the primary systems. Our teams worked alongside Martellian engineers to restore breathable air for 3 million colonists. Commander Thale of the Krugan Empire stood abruptly, his massive frame casting a shadow across several smaller delegates. And how many weapons did these rescue missions require? He rumbled, his tusked face twisted with suspicion. Human ships carry enough firepower to level planets. General Reed stepped forward, his jaw tight with controlled anger. Our ships carry defensive weaponry appropriate for their missions. The pirates we fight use military-grade equipment stolen from various species' navies. Stolen from your species as well, interjected Counselor Kextha of the Meridian Collective, her insectoid mandibles clicking with agitation. Human weapons appear frequently in pirate hands. How convenient that you create problems you then solve. Dr. Vasquez activated another display, showing detailed weapon signatures and manufacturing data. Our analysis proves that 93% of pirate weaponry comes from military surplus sales by the Krugan Empire, the Zephyrian Defense Force, and the Hegemony's weapons manufacturers. Only 4% shows human origin, and those are confirmed stolen items. The accusations continued for hours. Every human achievement was twisted into evidence of aggression or ulterior motives. When humans stopped a war between 2 minor species, they were accused of interfering in internal affairs. When they provided advanced medical technology, they were suspected of creating dependency. When they established trade routes, they were called economic colonizers. Elder Wisdom Keeper Nalthis had remained silent throughout the session, her ancient ethereal form floating in its reserved section. The ethereals were the oldest known species, witnesses to the rise and fall of countless civilizations. When she finally spoke, her telepathic voice touched every mind in the assembly. I have observed this pattern before, Nalthis communicated, her mental tone heavy with sadness. Fear of the strong leads to their exile. What follows is always instructive. High Chancellor Vextar raised his crystalline hand for silence. The Council has deliberated extensively on the human question. Humanity's aggressive nature and military capabilities pose an ongoing threat to galactic stability. Sarah felt her heart sink, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. High Chancellor, Humans have served faithfully in the Peacekeeping Corps for 47 years. Our casualty rates in defense of other species are exactly the problem, interrupted Vextar. Your willingness to engage in violence, even for allegedly noble purposes, demonstrates the fundamental incompatibility between human nature and civilized society. The formal declaration came in the ancient ceremonial language. Translated simultaneously for all species present, the terms were devastating. Human military vessels would be restricted to their home systems. Human colonies would face triple taxation on all imported goods. Human citizens would require special permits to travel in council space. Most crushing of all, humans would be removed from all peacekeeping operations immediately. Sarah looked around the massive assembly, seeing satisfaction on too many alien faces. These beings had convinced themselves that humanity was the problem, that removing humans would somehow make the galaxy safer and more peaceful. The Human Colonial Union rejects these terms, Sarah announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. We have served faithfully, blood for peoples not our own, and shared our knowledge freely. If the Council believes the galaxy will be better without human participation, then we shall withdraw entirely. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the assembly's ambient hum seemed to quiet as the implications sank in. General Reed stepped beside Sarah, his voice firm with military precision. Effective immediately, all human peacekeeping forces are recalled to Colonial Union space. All human aid missions are terminated. All human-sponsored research projects and cultural exchanges are canceled. Dr. Vasquez added her own announcement. The Colonial Union hereby revokes all technology sharing agreements. All human medical facilities treating non-human patients will complete current treatments and then close their doors to new alien patients. Commander Thale laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Empty threats. You need us more than we need you. Where will you go? How will you survive without council trade and protection? Sarah smiled sadly as she gathered her materials. Commander, humanity survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the journey to the stars before we ever met you. We'll find a way to survive your absence as well. The three humans walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet assembly. Behind them, excited chatter began to build as delegates celebrated their victory over the human threat. Only Elder Nalthus watched their departure with growing concern. In her millennia of existence, she had seen proud civilizations make this same mistake before. They always believed they were stronger without those they feared. They were always wrong. High Chancellor Vextar called for order and began discussing the redistribution of peacekeeping duties among the remaining species. The Krugan Empire would take over military operations in the Outer Rim. The Zephyrian Defense Force would handle pirate suppression. The Meridian Collective would manage trade route security. It all sounded so reasonable, so organized. The assembled delegates congratulated themselves on solving the human problem permanently. In her private chambers later that evening, Elder Nalthus floated before a star map showing the galaxy's current political situation. Human colonies dotted the map like small blue lights, most clustered around their home system, but some scattered to the very edges of known space. As she watched, those blue lights began to dim and disappear from the galactic network. Communication relays went silent. Trade beacons shut down. Navigation aids stopped broadcasting. One by one, humanity was erasing itself from the galactic community. The ethereal elder had lived through the fall of the hegemony of worlds 3,000 years ago. She remembered how they had exiled the warrior poets of Helix, fearing their influence. Within a century, the hegemony had collapsed from internal strife, while the Helixans had built a peaceful confederation that lasted for millennia. She had watched the Crystal Collective banish the Forge Builders, claiming their technology was too dangerous. The Collective's technology stagnated, and they were eventually absorbed by more advanced species, while the Forge Builders went on to create wonders that still amazed galactic civilization. Now the pattern was repeating with humanity. The Council had chosen fear over wisdom, prejudice over cooperation. In her ancient heart, Nalthis knew they would all regret this decision. But by then, it might be too late to undo the damage. The galaxy burns. 6 months after humanity's departure from the Galactic Council, Captain Veltar of the merchant vessel Golden Prosperity found himself staring down the barrels of 12 pirate ships in what used to be the safest shipping lane in the galaxy. "This is Captain Bloody Claw of the Death's Head Squadron," came the transmission from the lead pirate vessel. "Surrender your cargo or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to decide." Veltar's tentacles trembled as he tried to reach the emergency beacon. This shipping route through the Andorian Passage had been completely safe for over 30 years. Human patrol ships used to sweep through here twice a week, keeping pirates away with their aggressive pursuit tactics and superior firepower. Now those patrols were gone, and the Zephyrian Defense Force ships that had replaced them were nowhere to be seen. "Where are the Council patrols?" asked his navigator, a young Altarian named Sekai. "Probably 3 systems away, filing paperwork about proper engagement protocols," Veltar replied bitterly. The Zephyrians followed strict rules about when and how they could engage pirates. They had to issue warnings, file reports, and get authorization before attacking. By the time they finished their procedures, the pirates were long gone. The humans had been different. They saw pirates. They destroyed pirates. Simple, effective, and terrifying to criminal elements throughout the galaxy. "Time's up, merchant scum," Captain Bloody Claw transmitted. "Prepare to be boarded." Similar scenes were playing out across hundreds of star systems. Pirate activity had increased by over 400% since the humans left. Trade routes that had been secure for decades were now death traps. Merchant guilds were going bankrupt as their ships were raided or destroyed. On the ancient battlefields of Cronus 7, 2 armies faced each other across a scared landscape that had seen peace for nearly 50 years. The Krugan Empire and the Valdorian Star Kingdom had been bitter enemies for centuries before the humans arrived. Human diplomats had negotiated the Treaty of Cronus, establishing the neutral zone that had kept the peace. Now that treaty was just a piece of paper. General Thakmor of the Krugan Third Army surveyed the enemy positions through his tactical scope. "The Valdorians have fortified the northern ridges with heavy artillery. Their defensive position is strong." His aide, Colonel Vexan, studied the battlefield maps. "Our intelligence suggests they have over 50,000 troops in the valley. A direct assault would be costly. Then we'll flank them through the Forbidden Canyons," Thakmor decided. The humans always said those canyons were impassable, but humans were cowards who feared difficult terrain. What General Thakmor didn't know was that the Forbidden Canyons weren't called forbidden because they were difficult to traverse. They were called forbidden because they were home to the Cronus worms, massive subterranean predators that had been dormant for decades due to human sonic pacification technology. The humans had been maintaining a network of sonic generators throughout the canyon system, keeping the worms asleep. When humanity withdrew, they had shut down all their installations. 3 hours into the Krugan flanking maneuver, the ground began to shake. In the gleaming towers of New Zenith, the galaxy's primary trading hub, Economic Coordinator Plextha stared at displays showing catastrophic market crashes across dozens of sectors. "The rare earth mining operations on Kepler Prime have gone silent," reported his assistant. "That's the 3rd major supplier we've lost this month." Plextha rubbed his scaled forehead in frustration. What happened to them? Pirates, most likely. The shipping insurance companies won't cover routes through that sector anymore. It's become too dangerous. The economic data painted a grim picture. Human colonies had been major suppliers of rare minerals, advanced manufactured goods, and innovative technologies. Their sudden withdrawal from galactic trade had created massive shortages. Even worse, human engineers had designed many of the automated systems that kept trade flowing smoothly. Without human maintenance and updates, these systems were beginning to fail. "Sir," his assistant continued, "we're also receiving reports that the quantum communication network is experiencing widespread failures. The human-designed relay stations are shutting down one by one. Plextha felt a chill run through his body. The quantum communication network allowed instantaneous communication across the galaxy. Without it, messages would take weeks or months to travel between distant star systems. Trade, diplomacy, and coordination would become nearly impossible. The humans had built much of that network as a gift to galactic civilization. Now they were taking it with them. But the worst was yet to come. In the deep void between galaxies, ancient sensors detected the quantum communication failures rippling across local space. For eons, these sensors had monitored the galaxy, waiting for signs of weakness or technological regression. The Devourers had been waiting patiently for their next opportunity to feed. Their massive high ships began moving toward the galaxy's edge, drawn by the scent of a civilization in decline. They had done this before to countless species across the cosmos. They would wait until a civilization grew weak and divided, then sweep in to consume everything in their path. The Galactic Council's quantum early warning system should have detected the approaching threat months in advance. But that system had been designed and maintained by human scientists, and it had gone offline with everything else when humanity departed. Elder Nalthis was among the first to sense the approaching danger. Her ethereal abilities allowed her to perceive disturbances in spacetime that other species missed. She immediately called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The deep monitors have gone silent. She communicated telepathically to the assembled delegates. Something vast approaches from the void beyond our galaxy. High Chancellor Vextar dismissed her concerns with crystalline contempt. Elder, your species has always been prone to mystical fantasies. Our own sensors show nothing unusual. Your sensors are blind without human calibration algorithms. Nalthis replied with unusual sharpness. The early warning network they built was our first line of defense against external threats. Commander Thale laughed harshly. We don't need human technology to defend ourselves. The Krugan Empire alone has more warships than humanity ever possessed. Quantity is not quality, the Elder responded. Human weapons were designed specifically to counter unknown threats. They prepared for enemies we hadn't even imagined. The debate continued for hours, but the Council refused to acknowledge that they might have made a mistake in exiling humanity. Pride and prejudice blinded them to the growing signs of danger. Meanwhile, in a star system far beyond Council space, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the CNS Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. The ship incorporated technologies that human scientists had developed in secret, innovations they had never shared with the Galactic Council. Admiral, reported Captain Torres from the sensor station, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from extragalactic space. The patterns match theoretical models for Devourer high ships. Sarah nodded grimly. Human deep space monitors had detected the approaching threat weeks ago. They had been preparing for this possibility for decades, ever since discovering ancient records suggesting that the Devourers were real. Send word to all human colonies, she ordered. Implement Defense Protocol Omega. All civilian populations are to be evacuated to secure facilities. All military assets are to report to designated rally points. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor, looked up from her console. Sarah, we're picking up scattered distress calls from Council space. The pirates are getting bolder, and several species are reporting supply shortages. Any requests for assistance? None. Their pride won't let them ask for help, even as their civilization crumbles around them. Sarah felt a familiar mixture of sadness and anger. She had genuinely believed in the dream of galactic cooperation. Humanity had given everything to make that dream work, only to be cast out when fear overcame wisdom. "What are your orders regarding Council space?" asked General Reed, now commanding all human military forces. Sarah looked out at the stars, thinking of all the species they had once called allies. Despite everything, she couldn't abandon them to face the Devourers alone. We protect human space first, she decided. But if the Council swallows their pride and asks for help, we'll consider it. We won't let an entire galaxy die because of their mistakes. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity had been exiled for being too aggressive and militaristic. Now their military strength and willingness to fight might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. In Council space, the first Devourer scouts were already probing outer systems. Entire colonies went silent overnight, their populations consumed to fuel the advancing Hive fleet. The quantum communication network's failure meant that news of these attacks took weeks to reach the Council chambers. By the time High Chancellor Vex Tar realized the scope of the threat, it was almost too late. The species that had feared humanity's weapons would soon discover what real monsters looked like, and they would learn, perhaps too late, the difference between protectors and predators. Humanity had been their shield against the darkness beyond the stars. Now that shield was gone, and the darkness was coming to collect its due. The galaxy's greatest test was about to begin, and they would face it divided and weakened by their own prejudice and fear. But somewhere in the void, human ships moved in perfect formation, their crews preparing for the fight of their lives. They had been cast out and forgotten, but they remained ready to defend those who had abandoned them. Because that's what humans did. They protected others, even when others didn't deserve protection. Even when others had forgotten how to protect themselves.